That was a rough transition. So hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Q&A Corner presented by High Tech U. I am so thrilled to be with you again, and I'm actually even more thrilled because I'm getting the chance to connect with a dear old friend. Just so everybody that's on the stream knows, Devon and I have not had a chance to connect in really have a conversation in like coming up on 15 years. So I was just saying before the stream got started that this is a very 2021 thing, and like in your 30s that you start to make those connections have some dual purposes. So I'm so thrilled to have Devon with us today, and I'm so pleased to have all of you here today. If this is your first time dropping by, my name's Andrew, and this is Q&A Corner, interactive industry interviews presented by High Tech U, an initiative of the University of Victoria Faculty of Engineering and Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering. These are an opportunity for you to connect with folks that are working in the tech sector in BC and beyond, to ask them all of those burning questions that you have, and to give them an opportunity to share a little bit about their journey. So we're going to get started in just a second, but if you are on the stream, if you want to just let us know if you can hear us, because I am going to pull up our amazing guest for today, and I think you should be able to unmute, but I might have completely muted you. I'm not sure.
No, I think I'm good.
There we go. Awesome. There we go. So welcome to Q&A Corner, Devon. How's it going?
Hi, great. We have a ton of snow here, but it's been like a bright and sunny day for the past few days, so it's refreshing compared to the snow.
Yeah, I feel like very lucky that we definitely don't have any snow here, although we did for a couple of days. So we had our taste of winter, and now we are officially over winter, which is nice.
Yeah. Oh, the bragging, I can't even handle it.
So like I said, I'm so pumped to have you here today, and just to kind of talk about your journey into tech, and really just for us to catch up. And if you're on the stream, if you've got some questions that you are dying to ask Devon as we go through this, we have got our chat, which is over that way, probably for you in the stream chat. So feel free to throw them into there, and I'll have an opportunity just to kind of let Devon know that those questions are there. But I sent a few questions to her earlier today, just to give her a heads up on kind of things that people generally ask. And maybe let's jump right into it, Devon.
Game.
Yeah, this is awesome. So you work at a very cool company called ORCA Digesters.
Yeah. Also known as Totally Green. Also known as TG Digesters. Got tons of names, but company name is TG. Product is ORCA, which is not a whale, but is an acronym. But it is an on-site organic or food waste digester. Goes into big commercial spaces, think anywhere where a lot of food waste is being generated. Hotels, convention centers, cruise ships, grocery stores, hospitals, universities, anywhere where they're making a lot of food and therefore a lot of food waste all at once. Sorry,
I'm like making sure that the stream is running. So I've got like a separate phone set up just to check the stream. So you're all good. Sorry, I should have muted my microphone.
Worries.
You're all good.
So it's basically looks like a big deep freezer, gets installed right into the kitchen using an amazing combination of science and technology and biology. We are rapidly digesting the food waste, and it gets sent down a drain as a liquid, and so many environmental impacts and benefits to it. You're not storing food waste on site. You're not trucking that food waste away from the facility. You're not filling a landfill with that food waste. And benefits to the staff on site. They're not having to transport food waste throughout the whole building. It's getting processed right on site, within a few hours, and it keeps up with their production.
That's awesome. Sorry, I need to switch back to both of us. I'm like constantly trying to make these things more fun just by like adding new transitions. And it always ends up that I forget that I've muted myself. It's all for fun. And I'm realizing like all of the little things that ever go wrong on these streams. I'm like, oh, I got to change that for next time, and I'll totally forget to do it. So that's super exciting. So how did you get there? And I mean, that's a pretty cool product, and obviously like very on trend right now. Was this something that you had planned to get into, or did you happen onto it? Like, what's kind of the journey that led you to working with ORCA Totally Green in the role that you're working now?
Yeah, definitely was not a straight line. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that one. But I did do environmental as my undergrad. I don't know if you recall from our undergrad days. I majored in environmental studies and geography. Took courses in waste management and, how technology is going to get us there to meet our climate change and environmental goals as a country, as a province, as a city, as a community, and how much this technology can have an impact on meeting those goals and getting us there. So after graduation, I worked with Union Gas, now Enbridge Gas, and their demand side management portion of the business, which basically develops programs to help commercial and residential and low income customers use less gas to save them money and to eliminate that CO2 from getting admitted into the atmosphere in general. So that was a great opportunity to kind of get a crash course in corporate Canada and really get my feet wet. That unfortunately was a contracted role. It kept getting extended, but it was contracted. So after that kind of faffed about a little bit, let's be honest, we traveled, we, did a number of different jobs until honing through and sifting through all of what is LinkedIn, trying to find new jobs, came across this one, really went back to my education on it and talked to the CEO, talked to who was my manager at the time, about all the things I can bring and all the skills I can offer in the role of operations, and basically have been here the past 4.5 years, which for us millennials is a long time.
Yeah, it definitely, especially in the tech sector where like the lifetime of an employee is like 2.5 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So in preparation for, thank you so much for sharing that journey. And if you're just coming onto the stream, so Devon and I met years ago when we were doing our undergraduate degrees. We actually lived next to each other in our first year. Our rooms were like kitty corner. And in preparation for this interview, I thought, what could be more amazing than trying to find a picture of us? And actually on my computer, I had this photo. That
oh my goodness.
I don't even remember where it was, but I was just like, this is perfect. This is a perfect setup. And
you can't even see the background. I think, oh my, look at our attire. We were snazzy in that
very rockin'. And I've had a recent conversation with my wife where she told me, I don't know why I married you. You looked real scraggly when I met you. And we met a couple years after this. And I'm realizing now that she God love her for sticking around.
No, you definitely experimented. First year was a year of experimentation for Andrew. There was different hair colors. I recall a piercing of an eyebrow at some point.
There was.
I think that's what university is for, though. You're experimenting, you're finding out what path and what kind of way you want to go.
Okay, so thank you for that. I appreciate you sharing my many journeys. Yes, there was pink hair. There were nose and ear piercing, eyebrow piercings. There were many. Eyebrow piercing. So definitely some things I look back on and question. But
same.
I think you're totally right that. Thank you for questioning these things as well. So I'm really interested in this idea, because obviously there's a lot of conversation that happens in sort of the 2020s. There's tons of opportunities outside of post-secondary education, of places that you can go, and people saying that post-secondary education is maybe losing its place for people. So, but you make a really good point that post-secondary education is about really exploring and finding yourself. So I'm curious, like, you've obviously ended up in a different place than you were in post-secondary. Did you find that like university experience was valuable for you in getting to where you are now?
Yes and no. I think there was lots of things, especially for this job, that I've learned when kind of given the task. One of my main roles is logistics. I do international freight and delivery for these massive pieces of expensive equipment. And I had no experience in logistics before this. But you take the task and you assess your resources. Who can help me? What conversations can I have to get the information that I need? And how do I be the best at this? So, we've expanded and we've, grown, and different aspects of the business have changed since I first started. And I'm still the go-to for logistics for these things. I wouldn't say I'm no more like I'm not a customs broker or anything to do with a logistics expert, but just because you didn't learn it at school and didn't take a course and can say, check, I've, acquired that skill, doesn't mean you can't do it, and doesn't mean you can't learn while you're, in the thick of it all.
And it's interesting because it's hard too, right? Like it's, you don't realize how many of these things that are out there that you have to learn through experience. But then it's tough to actually like realize going into it that you might mess up and you might make mistakes when you're going in there to actually figure this out, because there's no textbook on how to do these things.
Yeah. Especially in the startup world, right? You are being an innovator. You are potentially getting into a certain area of your expertise that nobody has gone to before. It's uncharted territory. How do you do this in the most efficient, best way possible? Or how does it work best for you and your business? You kind of have to reevaluate it. You bring in those experts. You don't have to know it all, but you have to know when to say, I need help with this. FedEx is not the solution. I need a better solution for getting this product to and from, or I need, to bring in someone who understands how customers look at this product, or how this website portrays to our team and our customers, and, what do they look at, and what's, causing, any type of delay, or, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like a hiccup, and they're not able to get the customer's not able to get the information that they need. All these things are important, but you don't have to know it all, but, find that help, find that expert, and bring them in to pick their brain.
So it's interesting. I'm really curious. So how big is ORCA? When you look at like the website for ORCA and like Totally Green, like it seems like this massive company. How big is Totally Green?
So it's kind of segregated into a few different companies, a few different groups, because it is a lot to take on. So right now we're about 10 people within Canada and the US, which is not a big team. We are, expanding in certain areas at a certain pace. But we do have an entire different company that takes on our international customers. We do have a number of global partners, and they are focusing on that type of sales and that type of operations and logistics and all that kind of thing. And then we have another group that's their head office is in Hong Kong, and they kind of take over the Asian Pacific market as well. So we're divided up. We are a very close-knit group. We communicate on a regular basis. I think, COVID and lockdown has helped to increase our communication, because we have to, communicate via video chat or conference call. We can't just sit in the same room together. But yeah, our team itself is quite small.
Totally. Well, and it's interesting, right? It like that's a very lean team, but also a very startup-y kind of model of segregating and doing these things. So I'm curious, like what have you found? And this isn't a question I sent you, so I'm gonna like put you on the spot. So like what have you found? Because you worked for like a big organization when you were working with Enbridge, and now you're working for like this kind of like relatively small startup. Like what have you found to be the biggest differentiators of those two different environments?
Yeah, I'll say it 1,000 times. You got to wear different hats. You have to be flexible, and you have to understand that there's not going to be a specific person to complete a specific task necessarily, right? We have a finance team, we have a sales team, and we have an ops and service team. Those are the three buckets. We've got management and people that are doing kind of like office management and nitty gritty things. But, if there's some sort of handoff between the sales team and the operations team, and we're not quite sure who needs to step up to the plate to that one, it's me or one other person. So who's got the time today? Like, step up, got to get it done. Like we're all on the same team working towards the same goal.
I'm muted. Totally. And I feel like do you think you would necessarily have gotten that, like, sorry, maybe that's not the best way to put it. I certainly see in a lot of these places, there's a level of, once you've seen how big sort of systems operate and like, and then you can see how those same things can happen in the startup world, there's almost a sense of, I don't know, I almost find in the startup world, you're forced to be creative, whereas in sort of that big corporate business world, you're very in your role, and you can maybe be a little bit creative, but it's like you need to deliver on what's out there. So there's not as many opportunities for growth within a position that you're in.
Yeah. I think the company, how big the company is, that type of how much they encourage you to learn outside of your department really depends on the company. Union Gas, when they were Union Gas, was amazing at that. They had online modulars. They said, learn these things, improve these skills. They encouraged you to become part of different groups and organizations within the company. They had so many groups and organizations that you could be a part of that was outside of work, and they really encouraged you to be part of the community. They also have, over half of their company has worked there for over 25 years. That is a massive accomplishment for any size of a company.
That's crazy.
Union Gas, and I imagine Enbridge as well, not that I'm involved with them as much anymore, really does encourage their employees to be their best selves and to work with them for as long as you want to. Throw that to a startup position where you kind of have the freedom to learn and grow and do. If you want to take on that project, lead that project, it's so easy when you're in a room of 5 people to put your hand up and say, me, I want to do that. Can I be a part of that project? Whereas in a bigger company, you kind of have to seek them out yourselves or introduce yourself to the right person to become part of that project. So is either one better than the other? I'm not one to say, but they are both going to show you, something, and you're going to take something away from both of those opportunities. So, a small team and a startup, it's all problem solving, you know what I mean? And that's where that creativity comes in place. Like, how can we solve this problem, in the timeline that we need, so that, everyone can move on to the next big problem, because there's going to be one tomorrow, I guarantee you.
So I'm curious, like, so you obviously see the value in both these, which is awesome, and I totally do as well. Do you kind of wish that you'd done it? Are you happy with the order that you did it in, of sort of working in a big organization and then moving to a small organization, versus kind of the other way around, of going like in a startup and then moving to a larger corporation? Or do you think it really matters at the end of the day?
Yeah. Everyone's on their own journey. You do what you need to do. I do really appreciate the way that I did it, mainly because I was able to, in a very safe environment, have those conversations with my managers and say, hey, look, we think you're great at these skills. We think you need to improve these skills, and take that risk here where, I know I have a safety net, and there's not a lot of, let's say, risk if I do fail at whatever the task is, or the skill to learn. And they were very supportive, and not that my current company is not supportive, but they were very supportive in young people learning and trying and giving them a seat at the table and a voice, that I think spilled over into confidence into, the startup world, and say, like, this is what I think is the best because of XYZ. And, people listened and responded to that because I knew how to have that conversation.
Awesome. So we've actually got a question in the chat, and I gotta say, for all those that are on the stream, I love when questions start coming in, because it's always like the first person needs to do it to get the ball rolling. So if you're just coming in, welcome to Q&A Corner presented by High Tech U. We are here with Devon Smith, Customer Experience Manager for ORCA Digesters / Totally Green / lots of other company names. But Devon is here talking about her experience in the green tech startup world, as well as all of the other really cool stuff that she's done. If you're just popping in, this is an interactive industry interview, so you are here to be able to ask your own questions, not just listen to us talk. So feel free to throw them in the chat. And if you can't, you can shout it really loud from your computer, and who knows, maybe we'll hear it or ask the same question. It's unlikely, but possible. But we do have a question from Coral Seahorse in the chat, and it's kind of going back to a question that you'd asked, or something that you'd said before. Do you find it overwhelming wearing so many different hats in the startup world?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I am the go-to person for a lot of things. One of the questions that you had sent to me earlier, but we never actually talked about, is like what I do at ORCA, which is like a lot of everything. You know, as soon as the sale is completed from the sales team, it gets handed over to me and my team, and I take it the rest of the way. So we're onboarding new customers, we're arranging the delivery of this physical big piece of equipment, coordinating with our technicians to get it installed, to get their staff trained, following up with those customers. You know, what do you need from us? What resources do you need? Dealing with ongoing service issues, something has broken, something is not working, doing regular maintenances and sending our team in for maintenance. You know, there's so many, I've got my hands in so many different pots, so many balls in the air that I'm juggling. Organization is key. I can't stress that enough. I almost always have a pen in my hand and a pad of paper nearby, because as soon as I'm done that phone call with you, someone else is calling me and 5 emails have come through and there's a request here and I've got a meeting in 10 minutes. Like, you have to stay organized, and you have to find whatever system works best for you. I don't do well with to-do lists. I do well with, like, you know, jotting down things as I need them and tackling them as they are a priority. You know, I think it's terrible at recalling people's names, but there's that saying, you know, if you can get it done in 5 minutes, just do it now. Don't put it off. So, you know, tackle those quick ones as quickly as you can. You know, take a tally at the beginning of the day. What do I need to get done? What needs to get done right now? What's urgent? What can wait until after lunch when, you know, my 11 o'clock is done? And it's important to switch between all those hats at the same time. You know, I'm constantly emailing and getting in touch with our finance team to make sure that, you know, customers' accounts are in good standing, contacting our sales team to make sure that the details that they had talked to with the customer get passed over to me and my team. I won't say that it's necessarily easy, but, you know, you whatever system it is that makes sense for you, run with it, and people need to kind of fit into that system, because when you are wearing all those different hats, you have to stay organized.
Totally. I feel like that's something that does not get talked about enough, is like how to actually stay organized in a job. Because I mean the tech world, right? Like agile is the thing. It's a thing that everybody talks about, right? Like you got to use Kanban boards and to-do lists and like check things off and do daily stand-ups. But it's like that in and of itself is its own task and things to do, right? So at the end of the day, the best management system that you can have is the one that works for you and lets you get your job done. For sure. And, you know, in my world and things I do, like, there are times where I'm like, you know what, phone is on do not disturb right now, and I need to focus on this task. And I kind of, you know, just sit down and focus on that. And I'm plowing through all the emails that I have in my inbox that I need to sort through, or a whole bunch of follow-ups with customers, or, you know, creating new documentation and, you know, working on that and putting all the information that I want in there, making sure it looks nice before I kind of reevaluate. I think there's, especially with like social media and how things are nowadays, there's this expectation to always be available and always be accessible. But, you know, if you've got that massive to-do list, take that time, you know, take that hour, take that 2 hours to just get through and do what you need to do and say, hey, sorry, colleagues, I'm not available for the next 2 hours. Please respect that and get your tasks done. Because, you know, there's no harm or shame in that. And one thing that I think is also kind of forgotten by a lot of people, especially new people into the corporate world, is
look at the resources you have at your disposal. Who's there to help you? They're there to support you? Does someone already have half of this information sorted and you can, take their report or their list and manipulate it into what you need it to be? You're not recreating the wheel every single time. There's again, no harm and no shame in asking someone for help or asking for additional resources.
Yeah, it's so true. I feel like we kind of get into this zone, this space of like, I can't copy, like I have to create everything from scratch. Yeah. And it actually works against you because you spend so much time building something completely your own and putting all this work in just to find out that you could have saved like a day or 2 days or hours by just utilizing something that's already out there. And yeah, it's funny. I remember reading something, particularly on the software side, where it was one of the big tech companies saying, never go to Stack Overflow, which is a big popular site in the tech world, to like copy things. And then I had a conversation with a developer that we work with who said, well, the issue is not that you're copying and say you need to be able to understand what's there. It's not, the issue is not, the issue has never been about copying. It's about if you copy without understanding what you're doing. And I think it's the same thing in any business world, right? Like understand, have the conversations, and then you're in a good position to use those things moving forward. And you've potentially built a connection with somebody that created the resource, right?
100%. Yeah. Always know what your problem is and vet that out first. If you haven't gotten that direction or that understanding from your manager or from your colleague, maybe you need to go back to square one and say, sorry, like, what is it you want me to accomplish with this? And then you kind of go from there. Now that you have a solid understanding of what you're trying to get done, then you can start sorting through, figuring out what the answers to those questions are and how to find the solutions to those problems. And all of a sudden you have the, product that you needed at the end of it.
Totally. So I realized that while we were talking about ORCA earlier, that I didn't actually show, like, I have all these screen setups. So like, the ORCA website. So if people are interested in finding out more about Feed the ORCA, you can check it out, feedtheorca.com.
I did that saying, I want to brag about myself for a second, that inspired by nature, fueled by science.
Really?
We were in like a brainstorming session, developing like all these extra things, company goals, and reevaluating all these things. And our CEO was like, we need a slogan. We need like a pop-in slogan. And we were all kind of throwing out all these things. Then it just came to me. I was like, inspired by nature, fueled by science. And then we all were like, wait, someone else uses that. And then we Googled it. We're like, no one else uses that.
So you've hit on like a really good tagline when you're like, doesn't somebody else already have that?
Yeah. And if someone does know someone uses that, like, please let me know. I need to correct that. But no, we were all just like, yeah, that's great. That we revamped the website a few years ago. So there's 4 different models of ORCAs. If you go into like the model section, if you can from there, they're all at a commercial size. There's not one for like your home or your apartment building as much as people would like those. The smallest one there, the baby ORCA, is about the size of a dishwasher that you'd have at your home. And then the largest one, the OG 100, is over 10 feet long. So It is very big.
So I'm super curious now because you said like 10 people. So like, what's the breakdown? So I think one of the things that people tend to potentially miss out on is like all of the jobs that exist. So like if you're looking at a tech company, you think like, oh, it's just the engineers that are there. But obviously you're in a customer facing role. Like what is the spread of those sort of 10 positions based for like the North America market that you're working directly with?
Yeah, it's ever changing, unfortunately. When I first started, there was way more heavy on like the sales side. Our production, we at that time outsourced. We're moving into doing much more of our own production. So our production team is definitely our biggest team right now. Then I would say sales, then finance, and then us, like ops, customer service, that sort of thing. It's kind of ever changing. I'm trying to think of like, even last year, it was different than what it is now. But yeah, so like, we don't necessarily have, a group of people sitting there, writing code and, developing that kind of side of the tech, but it's more what type of mechanical and computer technology is out there and how can we apply it to an everyday application. Our CEO is so interested in environmental innovation. It's his life's passion, and he is always looking into new products and new everything when it comes to how can technology and automation and using this existing infrastructure help us meet those environmental goals. So the ORCA itself uses the existing drainage system that's in every modern day city to move waste that would normally be put into dumpsters, loaded onto a truck, and then driven out of the city to a landfill. There's a statistic from New York City that 1 in 6 trucks on the road is a garbage truck. 1 in 6.
That's crazy.
Right? So moving waste seems like such a, expensive undertaking when there's, existing infrastructure that can handle it just as well.
Well, also, and I feel like it's one of these things, right? When you think of, I think when I initially think of green tech, like when I put my you immediately, your brain goes to like sustainable energy sources, right? It goes to those things. And yet you hear of these things. I remember like where I lived back in Ontario and even around here, you hear about these like areas and they're like, oh yeah, that's like they buried a garbage dump underneath that. So it like all of that stuff is built on top of a garbage dump. And then you're like, oh, okay, waste is a big problem. Like this is an issue.
Yeah.
But food waste is like my wife and I decided to do like for a little while we were going to compost, and we were like, yeah, this is going to be super easy. Like we'll get a little composting thing and do it. But so much of your food, like so much of your stuff is food waste. So even just in the home and I mean, I can totally see the use of this within.
Sorry, hold on a second.
No, it's okay. Within a situation that you're in a restaurant, that the amount of stuff that gets thrown out is just unimaginable.
Think of like a convention center that's hosting thousands of people in a weekend. The amount of not even if there was zero waste from like people's plates and zero waste from the buffet, just the prep, the waste from the prep, the stems, the peelings, the rinds, the the bones, the everything from all this food waste. And if you do, any research into landfills and our current waste streams in Canada and North America, organic waste, like food waste itself, is what makes landfills unstable, because food waste breaks down into a liquid. And when it's broken down without it being exposed to oxygen, which is what happens when it gets buried in the landfill, it produces methane gas. Methane gas is so much more volatile to the atmosphere than CO2 is, and it makes it quite dangerous to work near. And on top of that, this liquid that the organic waste is turned into then starts dripping down through gravity through the entire landfill, bringing with it all the toxins and all the other substances that are there, that battery someone forgot that they threw in the landfill, and all these other things, and that gets into the water table. And all of a sudden you've got, you can research it. I don't mean to doomsday scare anyone. Leaking landfills is a concern. If there's one thing to never throw in a landfill, it's organic waste.
That's funny.
So for these metropolitan cities, how do you deal with your organic waste? You can't just leave it in a smelly, stinky pile to decompose on itself. You want to deal with it right away. And if trucking things to and from is difficult, you've got traffic congestion, smog advisories, natural gases themselves are becoming a very, lucrative and a resource that we are trying to shy away from, but then also need quite a bit. How do we solve this problem at a very high level? Process and deal with that food waste, deal with the waste in general, right on site. How do we use existing infrastructure to transport that waste so that it's not just filling up a landfill? So our technology has been developed over the last few years. We've got an onboard scale system that weighs how much food waste you're actually putting into the unit. And now these all of our customers can get metrics and say, hey, in this last month, we diverted this much food waste from going into a landfill. We know that results in this much, CO2 not being put into the atmosphere, and this much less diesel fuel being used because our dumpster isn't getting picked up as frequently. It all adds to this, understanding of like, yeah, we're doing good. We really are doing good. And taking that a step further, then the chefs and, the kitchen staff in general can take a look and say, hey, every Sunday after, brunch, we're throwing away hundreds of pounds of food waste. Let's start buying and cooking less food and see what that turns into. And all of a sudden they start producing less food waste. So they have to process less food waste. So, it all kind of adds to this saving and not consuming in general.
And it's funny too, because I feel that it's the tech the companies, like the startups that are really making the biggest change, are doing it through potentially like things that you don't think about every day. Like I feel like most, like certainly when you say like the one thing to not put in the the traditional waste system is in the landfill is organic matter, and I'm like, but it decompose. Like what about plastic bags? Like I've been told that plastic is the worst thing for those landfills. So to hear that like it's not just that, it's actually the organics is crazy.
It depends on the scale you're looking at it, right? Like on a big scale, we as a human society, global population, producing and consuming too much plastic. But for your neighbors and your neighborhood and your water system, or the next community over, to not contaminate their water and to be a good neighbor, putting organics in the landfill is one of the worst things you can do.
See, the things you learn. See, this is why I do these every single time I go on one of these Q&A corners. I'm like, damn, I learned something cool.
Yeah, you thought we were going to talk about customer experience and stuff like that, and all of a sudden I hit you with some hard knowledge about your terrible landfill habits.
I was going to say, this is not good for me. Apparently, I should go back to doing what I was doing.
I don't want to shame anybody into doing things better or to do things differently. But just because it's an existing infrastructure and an existing system doesn't mean that it's the best way to do things. Just because it's widely accepted by society doesn't mean that it's in our best interests. And I think that's this generation of I don't want to say kids, but people who are learning, that are younger than us, they're going to see and understand this information faster than we did and faster than our parents' generation did. And they're the ones that are going to make these massive strides and massive changes in their behavior and their global understanding of where they fit in this world to change it.
Totally. You know what? I had an experience today where I'm finally like, I'm feeling my early 30s. I was like walking across campus to go and drop something off for one of our employees, and my shin started hurting, and I realized that like I just don't stand or do any exercise during the day, and it's things like that. And then this conversation of the kids now, they really need to be thinking about these things. But you're absolutely right, and they're so much more aware. But I do feel like some of these things you don't know unless you get into a situation where somebody's educating you. And do you find that like in your role within ORCA and Totally Green, that like a lot of what you're doing is just educating the customers on like why this is such an important thing? And I mean, obviously there's a sales piece that the sales team is doing of like a hard sell, but do you find that a lot of what you're doing on that side is customer education on like, here's why this is hugely valuable and here's how you can do it better?
I think our sales team definitely wears that hat more than I would, but I think I would give them a bit more an understanding of like, hey, this is how you can get the most out of this product and really make it work to its full potential for your benefit. I think that's definitely more of a task that or a role that I would play. And we do, like there's massive hotel groups out there that are they understand hotels use a lot of water. They use a lot of resources. They, it's amazing that we can travel our world and see it, but there's an environmental footprint that comes with that. So how can we be our best global selves and minimize the impact we have in these communities that we want to share and explore. So they're really, I'm not in the hotel world at all, but they really are taking, pretty big strides to say, hey, we can be a leader here. We can be, make that change So they come to us wanting an environmental solution. And we're more than happy to tell them all the ways that it will help them in, their everyday, as well as in their kind of, bigger representation of them in their community. So, yeah.
I love it. See, green things are making big change. So, so thank you so much, Devon. So far, I just want to say thank you to Coral Seahorse as well for dropping in. They had to head out. They were the one that had asked the question about wearing the different hats, but we're super excited to have you. If you are just tuning into the stream, if you're like, where the heck have I come? I'm learning lots of things about environmentalism, and I thought this was tech industry. We're talking all things green technology. We've got Devon Smith here, customer experience manager with ORCA Organic Digesters, Totally Green. We are talking career pathways, working on the customer side of green tech, and all things related to that. If you've got a question, these are interactive industry interviews, so not just Devon and I having an awesome catch-up conversation on stream, but also an opportunity for you to ask questions. So feel free to throw it in the chat over there, or down there, or maybe up there. I'm not sure where you are looking at your screen right now, but somewhere there will be a place to type questions, and we would love to have some questions because we've got about 20 minutes left, and then it is much later for Devon than it is for me. So feel free to throw your questions in the chat.
Any questions? I think kind of, our tangent that we went on with organic and kind of waste in general kind of speaks to what we had talked about earlier, with just kind of exploring and figuring out what you're interested in, what you like, how can you, meld together your love for tech and your love for, programming with, maybe it is an environmental side. Maybe you love growing exotic plants. Maybe you love cooking, whatever it is, there is a group out there that is just as like niche as you are that you could fit right into. And there's so many benefits to just exploring whatever hobby or passion it is. I know back in our undergrad, Drew, you were the same. We were involved in so many different groups and programs. I was on the first aid team. I was a student dispatcher. Gosh, there was so many different groups. I can't even remember them all. Our international studies group, with hosting international students and everything. Like Trent was really a great university for that, and really encouraging people to become part of their community, not just part of their group or their classes. I imagine University of Victoria is similar.
Yeah. So, I gotta say, this is a good tangent. So while High Tech U is obviously based here at the University of Victoria, big shout out, not that I expect anybody watching this stream will have attended or been around Trent University or know where it is. But if you are no, it's okay. If you are ever rocking through Peterborough, Ontario, drop by Trent University. Awesome School, doing some really, really great things. And they've got a very unique model that's very, very community focused, and that's actually, if you just drop it on the stream, that's where Devon and I met. We did our undergraduate degree together. Let me see if I can pull up that photo again, just so there's a second opportunity to get that out there into the world, because nothing says I am 18 years old like that very large shirt and that very scraggly beard. So you're welcome, Twitch world. That photo is probably never gonna go anywhere again.
It's like seared in my brain.
There you go. It's there. It's funny because I peeked into my photos and it was just there all of a sudden, and I was like, oh, this is very apropos that we're going to be doing a stream together, and it's on there.
It's a sign.
It's a sign.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah.
So I'm curious now, you talked a lot about the really positive things about your job, which is awesome and probably good, because I'm sure at some point your boss will watch this and will have something to say. But I'm curious, I feel like we talk about, especially when we're doing these kind of things, there's a lot of these conversations about here's a cool thing and why you should get into this industry, but we don't necessarily say here's the thing that really sucks about this industry. So I'm curious, what is the thing in your job that you really don't enjoy?
It is exhausting. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that one. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, and I'm just like, woof, I am beat. So yeah, we didn't quite talk on it. So I live in Hamilton, Ontario, and our office is in Toronto, Ontario. And I know on a map that looks like it's very close together, but I have a 2-hour commute one way. So,
Whoa.
you know, I leave the house at 6:30 in the morning before COVID, obviously. And I'm not home again until 7:30, 8 o'clock if I catch the right train. So, you know what I mean? There's a lot of time where you need to be on and ready, and, you know, you need to have the energy to tackle those problems, to be the very nice, polite person on the phone, to, you know, help your customer when they're in a frustrated situation, to walk them through the best way to get through this and what you can offer them as help and support. And that can really be a struggle, just as a human being that has emotions that are not always happy and pleasant. You know, that can be a struggle just in general. So, you know, you take your time, you take your breaks, you know, ask your colleagues for help and support where you need it. You know, you don't have to be the person that does everything, and, you know, the one that is always there to answer every single question. You can, you know, pass that on and say, hey, this is the better person to answer that, or I need you to go to this person going forward. You can't keep coming to me with that question. You know, however you need to manage that to keep yourself sane and keep yourself to be the, you know, the best manager you can be, to be the best customer service support you can be, to be the best team player that you can be.
Yeah, so I gotta say, you're setting up these segues so well. So obviously during COVID, you're not driving 2 hours either way. So like, have you seen a big transition during COVID for you? Have you found it has helped your work-life balance, or has it made it worse?
It's kind of funny because, like, my partner was also commuting to Toronto for the first year we lived in Hamilton. We like made the switch. We're like, we're moving to Hamilton. We're doing it. We're going to get jobs in Hamilton. And then neither one of us were able to get jobs in Hamilton, but committed to commuting still. So we would get home and we'd just be exhausted. We'd be wiped. He luckily, you know, started his own business. He's now working full time in Hamilton. And with COVID, all of a sudden we had our whole evenings together. We could go do things in the evenings, but then everything was locked down, so we couldn't actually go anywhere and do things. So we talked about hobbies earlier, picked up a lot of different hobbies. We are avid gardeners now. We grow a lot of our own produce, which is great. I've picked up sewing. We're in my sewing/office room. So I've been sewing clothing and quilts and various things out of fabric, which is such an opposite of, you know, what I do at work, because there is a level of like creativity and problem solving, but I don't have necessarily a design output. You know what I mean? I'm not creating beautiful layouts or, you know, designing any type of animation, or let's say art, for lack of a better term. I'm really, you know, helping people with their nitty gritty, you know, training, educating, you know, that sort of thing is my tasks. And I love it. It's like, I'm passionate for it. But having a creative output, or even like a de-stress calming output as well, is, you know, been a really good kind of side by side with it.
Yeah, I got to figure that out at some point before I hit 40. I got to figure out a hobby. I've yet to figure one out.
Just pick one. Just pick one and try it. What's the worst that's going to happen?
I was going to say, you know, the last time I tried to pick up a hobby, it became a job. That's the downside. Is like, you got to be careful that your hobbies do not somehow accidentally become jobs. Because then it completely defeats the purpose of being...
then you need a new hobby at that point.
Exactly. So that's really what I need to do, is just find a hobby that can't become a job. That's the key. Yeah. I feel like ballroom dancing is likely not ever going to become a job for me.
Yeah. I wouldn't say, not your most lucrative career path, but could be a great way to de-stress.
You know what, though? I gotta say, so years ago, this is just like another... So you're Scottish country dancing.
Oh my gosh. So guess who connected with me not that long ago was Sarah.
Really?
And she was talking to John and Joan.
There you go. Alive. That's amazing.
John and Joan were our Scottish country dancing teachers, and they were the loveliest Scottish couple. They were Just so sweet. Do you remember the snacks she used to cook us?
I don't, but I'm sure that they were amazing.
I don't remember her shortbread?
Memory of a goldfish. It's gotten worse. The older I get, the worse my memory gets.
Yeah, that was, you're right. That was like a total opposite of what we were doing in school and classes. It was just this fun, silly time to dance around like 18th century
Scottish noble people. You know what? Actually, when I got married, we actually had Scottish country dancing as like the dancing thing, and there was a ceilidh band there, and it was a whole thing, and nothing makes people feel less awkward than a nice Scottish jig while they're at the wedding, just enjoying themselves. So yeah, but I mean, right?
Back to you. Like, were you like leading the dance?
No. So thankfully, I was not, because I have 6 left feet, not just 2. But I did feel like I was a little bit ahead of other people. But it's funny because like now I look back and I'm like, man, I was a little bit more relaxed in university. Not much more relaxed, but at least a little bit more relaxed. And I'm like, I really need to get a hobby. But one of these days we'll figure it out. But that's an important, if you're on the stream and you're not getting any, if you've got nothing else out of this stream so far, which I'm sure you've gotten lots of awesome things, get a hobby that will de-stress you, that's not related to your work.
Yeah, something total opposite. Something that's like completely unrelated. Just dabble in it. See what happens. You might really enjoy it, and I don't know. It's a different perspective.
Yeah, it's true. So if you're just tuning into the stream, welcome. You're here at Q&A Corner presented by High Tech U. We're here with Devon Smith, Customer Experience Manager at Totally Green, ORCA Digesters, and many other fun names. We are here for a little under 10 minutes just to, we're having a conversation about careers that are non-technical in the tech industry, doing some cool things. And if you've got a question, feel free to throw it in the chat over there or down there or up there. If you're catching this on YouTube and you really want to ask a question, but it's on YouTube, feel free to throw a question in the chat below or the comments below, and I'll make sure that Devon gets it and that there's a response that goes in there. But I'm curious, advice. So I'm not going to end off the very final question that I'll ask. I always like to keep kind of hidden away, but the kind of what kind of advice do you have for people that are wanting to get into maybe some sort of environmental business that has a tech angle to it? Like, what's kind of your advice for somebody that wants to get into an industry like yours?
Yeah. Find a mentor. I know that may seem like kind of obvious, but find somebody who is a mentor that can teach you whatever aspect of it you don't know. So if you're, all about the environmental cause, how you're going to change the world, with what product it is or what service or, however that is, find the person that can help you make it a business, make it profitable, make it, operate and function like a business. If you know the business side of things, but you're not quite, strong on the tech side or the environmental side, find that mentor that can help you down that path. And don't be afraid to ask those questions and pick their brain and get into those conversations with that mentor or colleague. It doesn't even need to be somebody who's considered older and wiser than you. There's so much knowledge out there, and most people are more than happy to share it with you and help bring you along with them, or lead you in the right direction to make your dreams a reality.
Wow, that was like super good advice. Mentorship is huge, and it's a big conversation right now, but I think there is that perception that a mentor has to be somebody who is like much older and wiser, but you could have a mentor that's just like a colleague that you're working with who's been doing something slightly different than what you've been doing, right?
Yeah, for sure. Someone who's a year older or a year ahead of you in school, they've navigated that path already. They know what it's like. A master's student is far more knowledgeable than first year undergrad. There's no reason why that person can't can't be your mentor.
It's true. And you know what? I did my teaching degree recently, and I did a practicum in a middle school for my first teaching practicum, and I was with a teacher who was like, I don't know, like 6 or 7 years younger than I was. And I walked into it saying to myself, I was like, and they call them mentor teachers when you go into these programs. And I was like, this is going to be such a weird thing. Like, I'm so much why. And I was honestly like, absolutely the opposite. Like, this person, so like, lol, or if you ever watch this stream, which I doubt you will, you are a rock star. Like, just the epitome of what you're looking for in a mentor. Like, lets you go in, make mistakes, but is there to support you, provides guidance when it's there. So I think that's also like, that was a big learning for me, and definitely like flows into that mentorship idea of like, mentors.
But they're a teacher. Like, that's what they do. They teach, and they can teach. A teacher can teach anybody, whether you're old or young. I mean, it's never too late to start something. You're never too young to start something. You're never too old. There's, back to my hobbies in the sewing world, there are what I would call children, 12-year-olds that are leading, group community sewing classes and teaching other children how to sew zipper bags and mend their clothes or change a t-shirt into like something cool and funky that no one's ever seen before. Ageism is a real thing. You can be any age and teach. You can be any age and learn something new. We were in a lot of classes together in undergrad, but I remember, I think it was a politics class. There was a gentleman in our first year politics, 101, back at Trent in the mid-2000s there, and he was easily in his 70s. And he's like, yeah, I've always wanted to get an undergrad degree, and this is the time I've had for it. So he, was there in his first year class with all of us 18, 19-year-olds, decades older than us, learning the same thing.
I gotta say, I never thought that I would think of like the mid 2000s as like ye olden days of years ago, way back
2006.
Way back in the day. No, but it's so true, right? And I think you're right. Ageism is definitely a thing, but it's something that's like slowly starting to change. I mean, I work primarily with young people in my job, and every day that I am engaging with them, I'm just blown away by what they do now, and it just makes me feel that I have not accomplished enough with my life by this point. I should have been like doing more when I was 16.
Absolutely not. No, see, that's like the opposite of ageism. Like, no, you are on your own path, doing your own thing. If it takes you 10 years to get there where someone took a year, so what? That's their race. They're not in your race.
See,
you do your thing.
These are the things that you pull out. See, this is why I'm a great host, because that will be a nice soundbite for this. So we've got about 2 minutes left, and so this is the perfect time to put you on the hot seat. So at the end of every single Q&A corner, I always throw out the same thing to everybody. If you could encapsulate everything that you have shared over the last hour into one like nugget of wisdom in like a minute or less. What
did I just do that?
You kind of did, but I'm gonna like put you like straight on the screen, and then just like final nugget of wisdom for anybody that is just like the biggest takeaway from your presence here on Q&A Corner.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it like bullet form, because that's how I think. Ask for help, analyze the resources you have at your disposal, and utilize them. Find your passions and find your interests and encourage them. You don't need to put yourself in a box. You can wear lots of different hats, even if your job title doesn't, necessarily encourage that. Customer experience is a very vague term for ensuring our customers are happy. And there are so many ways that I can do that in a day that, every single day is so different that you kind of have to go into it just like ready and prepared to tackle whatever problems come your way. And you can kind of look at life that way as well. There's any number of things are going to happen in your life, and you just kind of have to tackle them. But you always have resources. You always have an opportunity to ask questions. And I don't know where I'm going with this. I don't have a point.
No, that was perfect. I don't know what you're talking about. Everybody always says that at this point. They're like, I don't know. Did I do? That was beautiful. That was wonderful. That was an amazing way to end off this Q&A corner. I will make the best soundbite out of that. You'll see it and you'll be like, damn, I was so wise. So thank you so much to all of our viewers who tuned in to this Q&A corner. Thank you for everybody who's on YouTube that's watching this interview and has sat here until the very end. Or if you skip to the end, go back to the beginning and watch the whole thing because it's amazing. Devon, thank you so much. This is like, by the way, I gotta say, we should do this again, and we should also we can do it on a live stream for ORCA next time, and so we can. I don't know what I'll be able to deliver, except for maybe I'll convince somebody to purchase an ORCA digester, which I'm thinking I may need one for my home, although it will not fit anywhere in our 700 square foot apartment.
Yeah, we need like a small home version of it, but yeah, there's so many applications to it, but composting is just like
composting.
If you can't have an ORCA.
If you can't have an ORCA, compost.
But yeah, like if there's any questions afterwards, feel free to send them my way. I'm more than happy to help out and answer any questions from anybody, even if they're too shy to ask them right now.
Awesome. So yeah, Canada579, thank you so much for your thank you. If you've got questions, you'll be able to throw them up on the YouTube video later, and we'll make sure that Devon gets them. Again, this was Q&A Corner presented by High-Tech U. This is Devon Smith, Customer Experience Manager at Totally Green, ORCA Digester fame. We are so pleased to have you. If you're looking to get more information on High-Tech U, I've just thrown it in the chat. If you want to subscribe to us on YouTube, I've also just thrown that in the chat. Man, I like these really quick things. We're so thrilled to see you, and we'll be back again next week with another Q&A corner. But until next time, Devon, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our viewers, thank you so much, and we will see you next time here on Q&A corner presented by High-Tech U. Thanks so much. Stay healthy, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.
Bye everyone.